conversation. I feel like we've really bonded there. It was good. And maybe I'll see
All
you at
right.
Gen
See you
Con
later.
too.
Yeah,
Take
maybe.
care.
All right, folks. Well, welcome to the show. That was Rodney Smith from Watch It Played. You may see him later. We'll see. But he had some things he had to do right now. But if you are watching this show, and I hope that you are, this is like the second of a series of shows that I'm doing over the course of Monday. I'll be going to Gen Con tomorrow, so we won't have time to do some shows then. And so if you have any questions or anything you can ask me, you can ask in the YouTube video chat thing, but I will most importantly get anything that's sent through to my Twitter. Twitter is at the Dice Tower. So if you send anything there, I'll get those questions first. And if you guys will give me 1 second, I will actually go shut the door here because it's getting a little noisy. All right, now it's possible my mic is still bad. That's unfortunate. Does that make it sound better? Well, if my mic is bad, then there's really only one option for that, and that is going to be to cut that mic. All right, folks, tell me if my mic is better now. Hopefully that will have fixed the problem there. All right, so again, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them to me through the Dice Tower at the Dice Tower on Twitter. That did not fix the sound? Well, some people are saying yes, and some people are saying no. I'm confused. How could the sound not be? Well, that makes no sense at all. Well, some people are saying it's better. All right. Well, I don't know which ones to believe. I'm going to go with the people. Oh, it's more echoey. Yeah, well, there's no way around the echoey. That's what happens when we're not using this microphone here. Although, if I got another cord, that might work. Give me, guys, just give me a few seconds, and I'll be right back. All right. Let's try this. If this doesn't work, then I will go back to the regular sound. All right, so. Oh, wow, that didn't. Okay. Apparently that cord doesn't work at all. Why am I even keeping that cord around then? Let's try this one. And people say, why don't you do more live stuff? It's because of things like this. The live stuff just does not work as well. All right, let's pull this up here. Let's pull up the settings. And that, folks, is why we don't do stuff live. Let's try this chord. We'll stick that in. All right. How does it feel to be in a box? All right. Ugh. So these chords are not working so hot. All right, here we go. Let's try and put this one on now. Can you hear that one? People are going to be. Did I? All right. All right. So let's see. The sound is fine as is. Blah blah blah. Well, I understand that, but I want to know if this sound works. If this wire works. If this one works, then we'll leave it. Otherwise, we'll pull it out and just go with the computer microphone. I'm waiting to hear from y'all, from the 43 of you watching. Okay, hooray! And that's why we keep backup chords. All right. Okay, folks, well, will you be able to get in? Okay, so let's start again. Folks, I'm Tom Vasel. You're watching the Gen Con Live preview. There may be other people who show up here. It's I've invited a few people, and if you want to be invited, then just let me know. You can come on the show. It's not a problem at all. And we'll add you in. You can get a hold of me. Mostly the fastest, best way is by Twitter. I have my phone right here. I'm on Twitter, so you can just ask me a question through Twitter, and I'll answer those first before anything else. If you want to be on the show and we have guests, we can have those on too. You already you saw at the very beginning, Rodney Smith was there and then was gone in an instant, but he might be back. So, and other people, I've invited different people. In our last one, we had Scott Morris from Arcane Wonders, and just now we have Zach. Say something. What? Okay, now this time I know I have my sound working. Let me check up here. All right, Zach, this time I think it is you, unless people out there can hear him, in which case that'd be fantastic, but I am not. All right. Well, folks out there, can you hear Zach? We're going to be so embarrassed at these videos when we're done. All right, Zach, check to see if you're muted or something, because I'm not hearing you at all. I don't know. I would test the video, see if you can sell through your own speakers. Steve Avery, are you there? All right. Well, I'll talk to you because I can hear you. Zach, I can't hear you, so maybe it's just not meant to be. I don't know what it is, but see if you can get the microphone working on your end. Try another microphone or something on that one. Meanwhile, folks, I'm going to sadly let you listen to Steve here.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Do I need to get a mic?
No, I think you're loud enough without a mic. Now,
well, who's
folks.
ready for Gen Con? I am.
Hey, Zach,
Did you
I
hear
heard
me?
you for a moment.
All right, good.
I did.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
so here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to introduce people to Steve. We're going to introduce people to Zachary first, since he's been here longer and trying harder to get things in. Zach, tell people who you are.
I am Zachary Strebeck. I'm a game lawyer. So that means that I work with a lot of independent game developers, both board game developers and video game and mobile app developers. I have a blog, gamelawyerblog.com is my blog, and I do a podcast. I've done a segment on the Dice Tower podcast off and on for the past year or so, but now I have my own podcast under the same name called Legal Moves. It's legalmovespodcast.com. That's where you can find that. That's it.
All right, Steve, what can you say that even comes close to that?
I've heard of Legal Moves.
That's exciting. You're one of the 40 people that listens to it. That's good.
So,
well, Steve Avery, what is so special about you in the board gaming world?
man, what is special about me? You know what? I'm just part of the masses. I'm not. There's nothing special, but I gotta say, I truly, truly love the board gaming community, and that's why I'm so excited about going to Gen Con, is because you get to see everybody and you get to have lunch with them, and you know, you might see these people 3 times a year, 2 times a year if you're lucky, and it's just a great feeling to see long lost friends and all that energy that it generates. So I'm excited. I'm excited about Gen Con. It's gonna be fun.
All right, well, Steve is the co-designer of Nothing Personal, since he can't say that, even though I asked him.
You mean I'm Tom?
If you also notice, behind him, apparently he likes the letter A for Avery. But you would not believe this. If you ever met Steve, you would remember it, first of all. But secondly, if you met him, you would think this guy's house is probably somewhat slobby. But his house is the most meticulous house I've ever been in, I think.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my OCD side comes at home. I get to cut loose at the conventions. So.
What he means is he's not the boss there. So, Steve, when are you getting to Gen Con?
I am flying in Tuesday night, and I'm right off the bat. I'm going to search you out and see if we can, maybe have dinner or something together. And then after that, my whole plan, besides being a Dice Tower plebe, when I'm not being a Dice Tower plebe, I am going to be playing prototypes, demoing, and playtesting, and just trying to get out there and shake the trees a little bit.
Now you're talking about your prototypes.
Well, I actually like playing other people's prototypes too, because I like being part of the creative process. When somebody has a problem and they're stumped and there's something that's just not clicking, it's fun to look at a game and speculate on other ways to do something. So I mean, I'm just as content playing other people's prototypes as I am my own, unless they're Eurogamey, in which case I'll take a hard pass. So
Zach,
I'm as Ameritrash as it gets.
Zach, when are you getting into the convention?
I'm flying in Wednesday afternoon, so I get there Wednesday night, and I'm not going to show up at the convention until Thursday morning. But I have, I'm writing this off as a business expense, so I need to actually be doing some work, whether it's meeting developers or I'm teaching a workshop on Friday at noon about legal pitfalls in board game design or board game development. So anyone can sign up. There's 4 people signed up now. Please, anyone else who wants to be in there.
Well, tell us a little bit more. What is that exactly?
So it's an hour session. I'm going to spend the first half just sort of going over 5 or 6 different legal pitfalls that you could avoid, from starting a company to making sure you get contracts so that you own the work or you get a license for the work that's in your game. things like that. And then the second half is just going to be an open Q&A. So anyone who has questions for a game lawyer, well, you get free time, free time with me instead of $300 an hour. So
I have a question.
yes, nothing specific to you. I can't give legal advice unless you pay me.
I was going to say, well, what would be your general advice for people who are wanting to undertake a venture together?
Right.
Do you believe that such things can be left to verbal agreements?
No, I don't. Well, okay, they can. The problem with that is whenever you get into business with someone without an agreement, you're a partnership. That's what they call it. That's what the business entity is. So default rules kick in if you don't have a written agreement together. So you split the profits 50-50, you split the losses up 50-50, and everything's sort of even, right? Each person gets the same voting power in the partnership. So if you want to change that, let's say you have 3 people, but only one of them's putting up all the money, so they expect to get most of the profit from the game. Well, you need to get that in writing, otherwise you don't really have any way to change that. But I would say, if you're going to get together with people and you're going to put a product out there, the best way to go is to form some sort of LLC or something like that, because then you have the limited liability protection. With just a partnership agreement, you don't have any kind of personal asset protection. Sorry.
One of the questions I almost always hear during, usually there is a question that's brought up during, like on those design panels.
Mm-hmm.
Is people are always trying to safeguard their intellectual property.
Right.
You know, and it's, I mean, especially when there's so much overlap in game mechanics and themes, and you got parallel development. You know, I personally, when I've been asked that question, I've said, look, first of all, the game community is so small that really, you know, it's not something that you should really worry about. You're never going to go and sue somebody because they're copying your game, because even if you were to prove your case, you'd be a pariah thereafter.
Sure.
Nobody would want to work with you.
I mean, people have sued other people for stealing their game, so I'm not going to say you won't. Smaller developers generally don't have the money to do it. There's no real benefit to it. I would say one of the things, I talked about this on my podcast a couple weeks ago, one of the ways to make sure that you're not copying someone else is to get information out about your game, you know, early and often, so that you're sort of crowdsourcing the checks and balances. No person knows everything about games. Maybe Tom, that's probably about it. But you're never going to know every game that's out there, and so you're never going to know if you're directly copying, at least, you know, even substantially, someone else's game. So the best thing to do is, you know, you start a blog and you start talking about your game and the development process, and it serves a few purposes. You know, you start to crowdsource and make sure you're not stealing someone else's game or art or mechanics, and you start building a following for your game too among other developers who have their own audiences, you know, so maybe you can do some Kickstarter cross promotion or something like that, and against the audience, you know, people are interested in how games are developed. They want to see behind the scenes stuff. So getting that development blog and that information out there early, I think, has a lot of advantages. Nobody's going to steal your idea outright. Everyone's afraid of that, and I'm not going to say no one's ever going to do it, but it happens so rarely, I think, that someone out and out steals your idea, that it's really not worth the whole, you know, I don't want to release my idea because I think everyone's going to take it. And then when they do, they become the pariah because now you're building up this following, and you can put it out there and say, look, this game stole our exact idea. You know, they because the industry is so small, you know, they're the ones that are going to get the negative press from that, I think.
Steve is asking these questions because he has stolen all my ideas, and he's now pawning them off at Gen Con.
Right.
He wants to know if he's covered or not.
Hey, I'll protect you. Don't worry.
I didn't document any of that crap, though, so I'm good.
That's true. Now, if you folks have questions for either Zach or Steve, we can take these. All you have to do is send us a tweet at the Dice Tower. That's the fastest way that I'll answer questions, and we might answer some other questions on the YouTube comments if possible, but I'd rather take them there. So if you have any question for Zach and his vast experience, or Steve with his experience.
Vast enthusiasm.
Oh, vast enthusiasm. With my vast girth. So, but Steve, while we're waiting for people to ask a question, What is the most? What is the thing you're most excited about right now?
You mean look, as far as games at Gen Con?
I'm sorry. Let's be specific. Gen Con. It doesn't have to be a game. What are you most excited about at Gen Con?
Oh, by far, it's seeing friends that I only see maybe once or twice a year. I mean, yeah, new games come and go, but friendships span, years. So I'm just looking forward to seeing a lot of these out of towners. We all converge together, and like you said, it's a small community, so it's very easy to circulate and get in touch with people. Although Gen Con is much busier than a lot of the other cons, so sometimes it's a little frenetic. But the flip side is you get the whole pomp and grandeur of the vendor hall. I can't think of another con that I've ever been to, including Dragon Con, that has that much splendor to it.
Speaking of that, folks, if you want to see Steve, oh, you know what? I never stuck you in the booth, did I?
I'm on the camera almost the whole time, and when I'm not on the camera, I'm tweeting. So I'm looking forward to taking control of the Dice Tower tweets.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be giving that to you, but but Steve, yeah, I didn't stick him in the booth much because I don't think he can sit that quietly for a long period of time. But Zach, what are you looking forward to most at the convention?
I get to meet a lot of my clients for the first time, actually. I'm a completely virtual lawyer, and I'm usually doing it from other countries. So I would say 90% of my clients I've actually never met face-to-face. So I'm excited to have a chance to actually shake their hands and talk to them. It's pretty exciting. And also, because I travel so much, I don't play a lot of board games with people. So I'm excited to actually sit down and play some board games.
Okay. And is this your first Gen Con?
It is.
Oh.
So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know.
There are some people to stay away from. I just recommend that.
You pointing to Steve?
For your first con. Because Steve's going to need a real civil lawyer sometime after one of these conventions.
You're a criminal lawyer. You never know.
Yeah, that's not my thing. Sorry.
All right, Steve, we got a question for you. It said, would you co-design another game with Tom?
I love working with other people because, like I said, I like engaging in that creative process. And frankly, I've tried co-designing with several other people, and out of all of them, bar none, I found Tom the easiest to work with. That
can't be true because I've yelled at you.
You're a creative person, and you give me enough rope to run with, and not quite enough to hang myself by. So it's a good balance. But speaking of which, co-designing, I've been working on a game with Robert Burke for a couple of years now, and we finally got to the point where he wants to go ahead and pull the trigger and publish it. So. But I gotta say, I still would rather design games with you, Tom. We just have a good synergy.
It's heartwarming.
Yeah.
All right.
We have similar backgrounds too. We got into the hobby almost the same time. Of course, you started reviewing games right off the bat, but the dynamics of what we like and where we entered the hobby, it's pretty much parallels each other.
All right. Well, Zach, a question for you here. What are your thoughts? This is from Ryan. What are your thoughts on multinational design partnerships?
I don't see a problem inherent with that. As long as you get everything in writing. The problem is if something does go wrong, there are questions about, what court do you have to sue them in? If you sue someone in another country, you have to then go to that country or hire a lawyer in that country and then somehow get that judgment against them recognized in that country. There's all kinds of problems with that. Logistically, there's really no issue, especially now with the internet. But I would always counsel my clients to say, look, there are these risks. If something goes wrong, then you may not have an actual way, a realistic way to get some redress for your problems. That's all.
All right. Jessica wants to know, will we be using Periscope at Gen Con? And the answer to that is we're going to be testing it there, but I don't know how well it will work. We'll find out. And then someone asked...
Periscope?
Huh?
What is Periscope?
Periscope is this new video feature from Twitter. It works with Twitter, like where you can do a video that people can watch live while you're at something. It's kind of like streaming through Twitter. That's all I know about it.
Is there Wi-Fi at Gen Con? What's the situation there?
No.
Okay.
You're using your
All right.
3G, 4G networks, I guess. But the video is online for like 24 hours and then it's gone. I know that.
Interesting.
Okay, question for all of us. What's your favorite style of game? Mine is fun. Steve.
I hate fun games. No, I like cooperative adventure games the best.
Do you? What's your favorite cooperative adventure game?
Man, I'd probably have to say Defenders of the Realm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We must now point out here that Steve is very good friends with Richard Lonius.
He's just moved away from me!
That's right. Yeah, Steve's pretending to be sad, but he's actually really sad about that because it was Richard was like Steve's best gaming partner. What about you, Zach?
I don't think there's any particular style of game that I like the best. I like a little of each. I don't know. I'm semi-casual, I guess. I'm not really that hardcore as far as actual playing of games. So, and my main game groups are also sort of casual-ish. So nothing too deep.
I have another question for you, Zach. And by the way, folks, you can send us questions through Twitter at the Dice Tower. But they say, when you finally meet and greet your current clients, will that be billable hours?
No, it will not. This is
See, everyone's more friendly in the board game business.
That's right. That's right. I'm generally pretty friendly as far as hours go. I bill people flat fees, so I don't bill by the hour for the most part. So it keeps the costs in line, so you can at least know what you're going to pay up front. And I don't charge you for a 5-minute email and things like that. I'm one of the nice ones.
Steve, I bet you never thought you would be on a video with a lawyer that didn't involve you apologizing.
This isn't a deposition, yeah.
I know. Actually, I'm kind of curious again what time your seminar is. Yeah, did you mention the date and time?
Yeah, it's Friday the 31st at noon. It's called Avoiding Legal Pitfalls in Game Development, if you want to search for it. But it's a seminar, I think, not a workshop. I don't know.
Well, one of the things I think that people should realize is we often talk about how nice the board gaming industry is, and it certainly is a nice industry. Because everyone knows everybody, all the designers and publishers, although it's getting big enough that not everyone knows everybody anymore. But despite that, there is still bad people in the industry. It's just a fact of life. We don't often talk about them, but I think Steve would agree that there are people who the industry knows are not the nicest of people.
It's true, and not only that, but now that you're starting to see really big numbers being pulled in by some of these Kickstarters, I think you're going to start to attract a different type of person to publishing, someone that's more concerned about profit and is not, primarily a gamer who wants to work in the industry.
Right.
They're more concerned about making money, and that changes the dynamics a lot of how people react and what expectations are. And I think you're starting to see that even now that what our whole community has grown. What would you say, maybe by a factor of 5 or 10? It's huge. It's just blowing up, right?
Right.
So even if only 10% of that community to begin with was not so ethical, now you have a much larger percentage of people who may not practice good ethics.
Right.
Zach, in your experience with when someone like does something, let's say they renege on Kickstarter or they mess their partner over, have you found? I've always been curious. Like, is there a high percentage of people who really didn't mean to do that at the beginning, and they kind of just they kind of grew to that point where they stole money or whatever, or is it often like a sinister plan from the very beginning?
I think it's usually, especially with a lot of the Kickstarters that have failed. No, I've interviewed a few of them, and it doesn't seem like they had ill intentions in the beginning, but I think they just didn't understand the industry, didn't understand how to get a game published. There were some video game ones and some board game ones, and I don't know if they were nefarious from the beginning, but a lot of people, it's their first time doing it. And if you don't have help and you don't really do your homework, you're not going to understand a lot of the issues. But then you have stuff like the what's the one? Doom that came to Atlantic City, and he was doing all kinds of other things that he shouldn't have been doing with the Kickstarter money, right? Like moving to Oregon and all those other, starting the company, things like that, that took away from the funds that were supposed to be put into making the game. So you have problems like that. Whether or not he went into it with the idea to screw over the customers, I don't know. But I'd like to think that they don't. And when you have people partnering together, that's why you get the written contract, because my job is to look at, well, what if it's a huge success, or what if it's a complete disaster and someone tries to screw the other one over? How do we deal with that in the contract? Because without that, sometimes you might just get away with it.
Well, lately, we've seen a lot of publishers and designers have some public disputes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Steve Avery brings me his new game called Trash O Trashy, and I say I'm going to publish this game, and blah, 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 we make deals and stuff, and then it goes south. And we don't know who's at fault. What's your opinion of this people kind of blasting stuff on the internet? Should you not do that at all? What do you do when people say, why don't Steve and Tom ever talk to each other at conventions? How do you respond there?
I would take the diplomatic approach and say, you shouldn't be airing those kind of disputes out in the public. It's generally a bad idea. Sometimes the contract that you have had a confidentiality clause that makes everything about it. It's supposed to be confidential, so you might be breaking that. It makes everyone look bad, I think, because someone's probably going to see it from both sides, and you're not going to help your game. You're not going to help your future career, I don't think, by bringing all that and just going negative out in the public. If people can see that you can actually get past your differences and move forward, I think that definitely reflects better on you as people and as a company. Do you agree?
But what if the other person is already doing it? Let's say Steve is trashing me in all the online forums and just
I've already been doing that.
Well, legally there may not be anything you can do unless you've put that in a contract. And if the things he's saying are true, if he's saying things that are untrue, then you could, I guess, sue him for defamation, something like that. But again, the whole lawsuit process just goes on and on. So for a lawyer, I also trained in mediation and trying to get people to agree on things. So I would approach it from the standpoint that we don't want to actually take this to court. We want to try to figure out what to do. And so talk to both parties and try to get them to settle their differences without going to court and spending a ton of money. And maybe try to go back and sort of clear up whatever the difficulties were and delete those posts and try to get it off the internet, because you don't want that. Once something's on the internet, it's hard to take it off. So the damage is usually done. But
let's say Steve designs a game called Dice of Doom, and I publish it, and I make $1,000, and I give him $1.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever, I do something that's either unethical or shady, but maybe not technically illegal, or I trick Steve somehow, and he wants to
Not hard to do.
Huh?
Not hard to do.
Look over there, Steve. But in this case, maybe we've gotten through it and it's not that big of a deal, and Steve's like, whatever. I would have got $10 out of this game anyway, or what have you. What's his? But inside his heart, he knows that other designers might want to work with Tom Vasel.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows Tom Vasel's a jerk.
Right. He wants to protect other people.
He wants to protect other people. What should he do?
I don't know. There's no easy answer to this, because yes, you can go out there and put out the information and let people know, but there's going to be some blowback. Tom Vasel's not going to be happy about it, and so Tom Vasel may claim that you're lying or just cause you some legal hassles if he wants to.
No, he's telling the truth.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's not really much you can do. When you want to work with other people, though, they're going to see how you've worked with Tom Vasel, and you went out there and you aired your dirty laundry in public. Maybe they're going to be less excited about working with you in the future. I don't know. So legally, there's not much to say, but just business-wise, do you really want to be the guy that talked about all this stuff? If you're going to try to work with another big publisher, they're going to look back at your history and they're going to say, well, if things go wrong, he's going to be out there saying the same stuff about us. So you may be damaging your own career by doing that. So maybe in secret, you want to talk to other publishers who may be working with Tom Vasel. I don't know, but that's up to you.
Zach, we have a question that says, would you ever consider representing a group of Kickstarter backers against a publisher?
No, because I don't do litigation work. That's not. I write contracts and form companies and do a lot of, they call it transactional work. So no, I wouldn't, and I think most lawyers probably wouldn't either, because if depending on how big the Kickstarter was, even if it's $1 million Kickstarter, the costs just aren't there. I mean, if you look at some class action lawsuits, you can see that the lawyers themselves are getting $30 million for their fees, and then there's many millions more. So the numbers, unfortunately, are just too small in the board game industry. No real lawyer is going to care. The litigators, I mean, or class action litigators especially. You just don't have the numbers. All
right, guys, let's take a break from legal stuff. What are your opinions on the biggest what's your opinion on the biggest impact to tabletop gaming in the last decade that has added to the seemingly large growth to gaming?
Steve?
So you're saying what game has brought most people into tabletop gaming?
Now, it doesn't say game. What's the biggest impact to tabletop gaming?
For me, oh, no, where are you going? You look like you didn't want to go. For me, it's obviously Kickstarter, I think, has been, and crowdfunding in general, I think has had the biggest impact. But I don't know. Maybe Steve has a different...
No, that's a good answer. I was thinking of in terms of games, and I know people bash it all the time, but Cards Against Humanity has really exposed people to other games outside of those ones you can just pick up at Walmart.
Right.
I mean, everybody I know has heard of the game, played the game. People, it's crazy. Like, bachelorette parties, even teachers, ministers. I mean, it's crazy that that game has such far-reaching notoriety. And but people, a lot of people are like, I like this game, was fun to play, but I want something different. Oh, look, there are other things that are out here, and people are starting to discover that. I'm amazed. It used to be like, even 10 years ago, I probably could name almost every gamer in the Atlanta area. Now I couldn't even name every gamer just in my county, just in my community. Because not everybody's a hardcore hobbyist anymore. Now there's a lot more of these transitional gamers, and a portion of those are going to filter into the hardcore gamer groups.
I think that Kickstarter is a big thing, and I would not say that Cards Against Humanity is the main thing that's changed gaming in the last 10 years and made it grow. I don't even know if Cards Against Humanity is a phenomenon as a game, but I wouldn't even put it in the top 50 things probably. I think
it's pulling in these casual gamers though.
Yeah, but there's lots of games pulling in casual gamers. Okay, I know that you're saying lots of people play Cards Against Humanity, but there's also a big subsection of the community, especially those who play games, who aren't interested in that at all. We're seeing tons of families coming in. They're not being brought in by Cards Against Humanity. It's just your friends, Steve.
Yeah.
My friends as well.
But Kickstarter is certainly a big thing. I would argue, and I would say that it's really just the widespread use, of the internet in general. We're seeing things like Meetup and Facebook help grow gaming groups, where people no longer need the game store to communicate with each other. They can meet each other outside that and go places. We're seeing conventions, and the internet has driven conventions all over the place, where small conventions have grown larger and the large conventions have grown mind-bogglingly big. If you look at the growth of Gen Con over the past 5 years, it's huge how it's grown. It's doubled in the last 5 years. The internet has also brought in things like Tabletop from Will Wheaton and a bunch of other smaller reviewers and things, and people are able to talk about games, and Kickstarter is another symptom of the internet. I think it's just the internet. The fact that people have smartphones and all that has made the internet that much more powerful.
So go ahead.
No. Well, it's just sort of leveled the playing field where it used to be that you had to reach out very far to find something, especially a niche thing like Euro games or something like that were niche here at least. Now you have a community, but it can be more spread out. I think that's the big impact of the internet.
But like when you're talking about other niche hobbies, I mean, you might be really interested in botany, right? So it's a lot easier to find other botanists. You don't see botany exploding. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, yes, the internet does facilitate that, but how can you say that's the primary impetus? I think it's got to be something.
You can't use a counterexample that doesn't even correlate to disprove that argument. You can't say, well, the internet hasn't helped pianos. I'm saying the internet has helped board gaming. I don't care what else it hasn't helped. It has helped board gaming. What I'm saying
is, like, if that's the reason that board gaming has really increased, why don't you see these other niche hobbies also increasing?
Well, maybe they are. We're not involved in it.
I don't know if botany has increased.
We don't know. I'm not part of the model train hobby, for example, so I don't know if that's grown or not. But board gaming itself was like waiting for this point. People used to have to play by email.
Mm-hmm.
Or by mail, not email. They used to have to play by mail. They used to have to go to the local game store and you put up a thing and said, I want to play games here at a certain time. That was the only time you could do it. We now discovered that, hey, I could play a game with Steve in Atlanta today. I'd also put mobile devices in there too, because I think the advent of all these games on mobile devices, people are playing them, then, I'll go buy the board game.
To your point, board gaming is a community hobby, whereas a lot of these other niche hobbies, you can do them solo.
Right.
You can't always play board games solo. So I mean, I think I get what you're saying. Fine, you win, Tom. Jeez.
Well, no, I'm just cautious to say that it's any particular one thing, or even one game. I mean, I don't know that Cards Against Humanity has reached even like Catan levels yet, because Catan is obviously Catan and Magic the Gathering to me, and Dungeons and Dragons, but Catan and Magic more than anything else have had an impact on society. Magic the Gathering is keeping game stores in business. Catan has sold more copies in a week than most games sell ever. So I think they're big, but they're both 20 years old now. For me, it's been the internet. I never heard about this stuff until the internet. I mean, I read some articles in Games Magazine, and I saw games at a store. Then I started reading stuff on the internet. There's always information out there on the internet. By the way, Steve, it has to be the internet because we're part of that.
Well, I was going to say it could be a sequence of events. I mean, like you have the rise of popularity of Dungeons and Dragons 20 years ago, and then the internet did facilitate MORCs, which brought fantasy gaming into mainstream and community gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And both Magic and like an online morgue are kind of jumping off points to board gaming. I mean, if you want to look at it like that.
Maybe. All right. Well, people are saying we're having a heated discussion. I just like to talk about stuff. But Steve is always wrong. Incidentally, Steve, I was talking to someone the other day about nothing personal, and they were talking about the different things design, and I said, I didn't think it would be this way, but I really feel like the design was a 50-50 design, like almost exactly. Do you feel like that?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was saying before. Is like it's a good synergy with you, and I tried working with Richard Lanius. I bring up one of the prototypes to Gen Con that we worked on together. Well, he is such a dynamic and creative designer. He's done 3 things before I've even done one. Right. Whereas with Tom and I, it's a lot more balanced. It's easy to bounce stuff back and forth.
Because he's less creative.
He's a little slower and less creative, so he brings it down to my level.
Sure.
Perfect.
All right, Zach, we have a question here on Twitter. Don't forget, folks, you can send us questions at the Dice Tower on Twitter. They want to know what your all-time favorite game is.
Wow. Let me think.
Okay, if you're part of the Dice Tower, even in the slightest degree, this question is going to come up. You got to be.
I should already have it.
You should already have your top 100.
Right. I will say that I've had the most fun, and probably the community will hate me for this, but I've had the most fun playing Risk Legacy with my groups of friends. Just because, I don't know, some of my best memories of the last few years have been going through the campaign with a group while I was in law school, going through the campaign with a group of friends that normally, wouldn't be serious gamers, but for some reason Risk Legacy brought them in and sucked them in, and they were really into it. And I just had a great time. So I also love Eminent Domain. Let me think of my favorites. Eminent Domain, Lords of Waterdeep, and the Lord of the Rings living card game was another favorite of mine. So I don't know. Take that from that what you will.
Well, that's certainly diverse, and that's one of the things we like about our shows, to have people with diverse opinions.
Right.
I mean, Steve's not kidding when he says he hates Euro games. I introduced a slightly Euro game to him, and he fell asleep halfway through, I think.
I don't mind
had good art.
Euro games. I enjoy playing some Catan, Cities and Knights, and what other Euro games do I love? I don't know. Carcassonne, or these Le Havre, Medici. All those games are great fun. Maybe not to Steve, but yeah.
Steve, you like Carcassonne?
I sold my copy about 10 years ago.
All right. What are thoughts on introducing game design to younger audience? Like Boy Scouts has a game design merit badge.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great idea. Go ahead.
I agree. They have a lot of. I don't know of any board game design things for children, but I know they have a lot of computer coding, game coding, that kind of thing, and they use a lot of the RPG Maker type programs. I don't know. Is there some sort of program out there for board game design? You guys would know more than me.
Well, right now there's a big push in the schools for STEM learning, which is science, technology, engineering, math, and almost always, from what I've seen, some of the lessons that they try to put in there involve some sort of board game design. What drives me crazy is that it's more times than not, it is what you think of as like a classic Monopoly, Sorry.
Right.
They're not looking at modern board game or even computer game design, because there's a lot of crossover.
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking at what are the traits of modern game design that make them so addictive. Right. And so even in my own school, and I told them, I said, look, I can help you with this. This is bad. There's not creativity in this roll and move,
right. Remaking Shoots and Ladders or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy. But I don't know of any programs out there. I mean, I think there are if you look around, there are like card templates, and there are there are resources, but you're going to have to already be involved in game design to know those resources.
Right. And I also think for board games, you don't really necessarily need any of that. You can get a piece of paper out and cut up the cards. And I think my thoughts on it are, it's one of those things where you can't put someone in a class against their will to design a game. It's one of those things like, if you play a game, certain type of people will just want to keep playing the game or play a different game. But it takes a certain type that wants to say, I want to make my own game. And then you jump on. Like, when I was a kid and I played Dungeons and Dragons, I got on the old TRS-80 or whatever and started typing and making my own rules for my own RPG, right? And only certain types of people really want to take it to the next level. I don't know if you can necessarily force people into designing games, because not everyone wants to do that. And I don't know, they're going to end up hating it if you force them to do it.
Well, I think more people want to design games than there are good game designers.
That's definitely true.
It's about the same amount of people who say, "Oh, I have a book inside me, and I'm going to write this book." And most people never actually do write that book, or once they start writing, we realize probably not a good author. There's a lot of that with game designing. I don't say that to discourage people, but realize that there's just a lot of people out there designing at this point in time. I don't know if a game designing class would work. That's an interesting idea, though.
Ask Scott Nicholson.
Well, Scott, yes, Scott kind of takes it to a more cerebral level, and it is really interesting when he's
kind of call it collegiate level. But I mean, he is interested in teaching game design, at the elementary level, and well, he doesn't want to teach at the elementary level, but I think he really earnestly believes that it should be part of the curriculum, because it's creative problem solving.
Right.
Right. But to your point, also, right, anytime you mandate something, there's going to be a large portion of people that don't want to do it.
Right.
Right. So, by making it something that is required, you're actually kind of undercutting the creative process.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. Well, Steve, what do you think about this news with the reprint of Fury of Dracula? Are you excited about that?
I really liked Fury of Dracula. I did end up selling my copy because it was never the game I pulled out first. Yeah, I think that's a really solid deduction game, a lot of fun. I'd like to see what they've done with it. Have they? I mean, as it is, Fury of Dracula was usually a 2-hour game. Is it still a 2-hour game? Have they managed to slim it down a little bit, or?
As far as I know, it's still a 2 to 3 hour game. They said they've streamlined combat and other stuff, but it doesn't look like the game itself got shorter.
It's hard to streamline any of those kinds of game where it's a cat and mouse, because otherwise you don't have time to build that tension. Although the flip side is Fury of Dracula, when you're early in the game and you pounce on Dracula right away, it's almost anticlimactic for him to get away, and you have to realize, I got to build up all my resources before I find him again. That's one of the reasons I gave the game away, is for full solder or something like that. I was like, if I find Dracula early on, I should be able to try to take down Dracula. I shouldn't have to spend the whole game to build up my hand before I can take him down.
All right. Just put it right
What
there.
are your thoughts on it?
I don't know. It's going to be one of those try later and see what happens type things.
I want to know because I've been looking, what Ameritrash titles are coming out that are looking good.
Well, the thing is that it's really kind of amalgamated at this point. There's just so much mix over. Like, I think Blood Rage is kind of a mix, but I'm really excited about it. I really like that game. There's, I think, 2 or 3 dungeon crawl type games that are being released from different companies, and so that's kind of interesting. Like, I think the Space Cadets away missions from Stronghold is going to be like a dungeon crawl, shoot 'em up, blow stuff up type thing. That sounds interesting. I think WWE from Gale Force 9, I think that's going to be a Amerithrash. It has to be, right? I mean, what's more Amerithrash than WWE?
I know. I really like everything he put out, so I'm anxious to see that.
So, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and I look forward to seeing this. But I'm telling you, there's always going to be a couple games there that surprise everybody. There's always something, and everyone always says, what are the surprise games going to be? And that's kind of like something we can answer after the show. So, any other thing that you're looking forward to at the convention that you haven't done before? You're try something new?
Oh, you're talking to me?
I'm talking to everyone. Well, Zach,
Well,
let me ask you this then.
yes.
Since Zach is the first time. What are you expecting from the convention, not having been there?
I'm expecting. Well, I'd like to be able to play a bunch of different games, games that I haven't seen before, and I may actually do what Steve is doing and try to play some prototypes, so that when they're huge successes later, I can say, "Hey, I was there when he was playing the prototype at Gen Con." I don't know. I've never really been in a place where everyone is playing games. It's kind of exciting to be at your first board game convention where everyone's really into it, and you can talk. That's why I enjoy doing the podcast so much, because I can actually talk to a few people that are really into board games or games in general for a couple hours. That's because when I'm traveling, when you're in Bangkok, you don't get too many people that you can talk to about board games, which is that's why I'm pretty excited.
It's interesting. I don't often hear many people say they're going to Gen Con to play games.
Well, like I said, I'm going to be doing business, and I'm hoping to meet a lot of new people and sort of get to know more people in the industry. But I would like to get some gaming in. My first day is all workshops and seminars. So
that you're going to, or that you're running?
That I'm going to. I'm only running the one. So, but I want to see. There's a few other lawyers there that are doing their own legal workshops. So I'm gonna be in there incognito, and there's a few others about just getting into the industry, things like that. I think it would be interesting for me to be able to give more information to clients that work with me.
Do you feel like there's ever kind of a negative lashback when you meet someone, you say, "Oh, I'm a lawyer, I work with board games," and people instantly have this negative, "Oh, he's a lawyer" type thing?
Well, the lawyer thing maybe is negative, but the game part, I think everyone's really excited about it. I say I'm a game lawyer, and people sort of look at me funny, like, "What do you mean? Like I'm Phoenix Wright, or like a lawyer inside a game, or am I a lawyer for people who make games?" And so I have to explain it a little bit. But no, everyone's pretty cool about it. The weird one is that I don't actually live anywhere, and I travel around with a backpack, and that's it. So that's usually what throws people off.
Okay, you just threw me off.
What? I don't have a home or a real office. I thought I explained this to you at one point. I'm what they call a digital nomad, if you've never heard of that. I basically live out of
that's cool. You should call yourself a Game Nomad.
I have another blog called A Lawyer Abroad, where I talk about nomad things and being. But that's why I never get to play games. It's because I'm only in a place for a month or two at a time, and then I move on to another country.
Well, where are you right now?
I'm in South Jersey at my mother's place, actually. I'm visiting for a few weeks, and then I'm going to Gen Con, and then I'm off to San Francisco for a little while. Then I'm going to PAX Prime up in Seattle at the end of August. And then Los Angeles, and then I think I'm going maybe to South America after that for a few months.
Steve, do not get ideas. You have a family.
I don't have a family.
I'm loving this.
I'm totally free, so that's why I'm taking advantage. That's it.
But honestly, there's gaming everywhere, and because of the internet, couldn't you find like people in every area you go to game with? I
could. I'm also pretty busy. As much as it sounds like my life is a vacation, I'm usually working every day and doing things. Is that you?
Yeah.
Tom's hooked on feeling.
I have some friends in Singapore actually, and when I go there, I can get some gaming on. It's a guy that I used to know back in California who now is living in Singapore, and I can. He's got a big board game collection there. But yeah, I know that in Bangkok there's a board game store that I actually never went to, but he had told me about that, and they have games there. There's usually something that you can find. Yeah, I just don't take advantage of it.
This is really, fascinating in a sense. And at the same time, I don't know that I could. I like to travel, but I don't know that I would have the courage to not settle down. What is there like some sort of innate Western frontier thing in you that makes you want to do that?
I don't know. I never. I mean, all my life, I never thought I'd really want to travel a lot or run my own business. And when I got out of law school, I did both. I sold my car and sold everything else of value, and I don't know. I started my own business and started moving. It's exciting. It changes your perspective on everything when you don't have any stuff. When I come home, I see stuff everywhere, and it makes me crazy. So I don't know. And even your board game collection behind you is, I mean, one shelf of that is more than I carry with me to live on.
Yeah, I would imagine you can't carry many games than that.
I was carrying my Lord of the Rings living card game collection for a while and my Netrunner cards, but even then, those had to get left behind because it's just too heavy.
Wow.
So you're the one that keeps on buying all the tiny epic stuff.
What? No, I've kickstarted a few micro games, and even then, I took them with me on the last trip out of the country, and I never really played them with anyone. So I don't know. I need to buy an iPad again so I can start playing iPad games with people. Asynchronous games would be the best. Yeah.
Zach, one of our listeners wants to know if you consider yourself to be a rules lawyer.
Yeah, I'm usually the guy who is in charge of figuring out how to play the game and all of that. And I'm the first guy on Board Game Geek looking up any rules questions and things like that. Because it depends on the group though. If that's with more casual people, then I'm the most hardcore. But I've played with some much more hardcore groups where I'm not the guy.
All right, folks. I think we'll stop this one here. I'm going to take like a hour and a half break here for supper and stuff.
Yep.
And then I'll be back, and maybe we'll have some other people on. Zach, thanks for coming on and telling us this cool stuff.
No problem. It's been my
Nice to meet you, Zach.
Nice to meet you guys too. I'll meet you again in a few days.
All righty.
Looking
Don't
forward to
forget,
it.
folks, if you're coming to Gen Con, we're at booth 3030. We'll see you then.
All right. See ya.